Welcome once again to CEBL Weekly, your once-a-week journey around the best pro basketball league north of the border. And we have a loaded show on tap. We've made it. It's the final week of the regular season, and there's still so much yet left to decide. We'll preview some of the big games coming up in the coming days to close the year. Plus, we'll go through my award picks, who will take home the hardware in the major categories for this regular season. I will tell you coming up. We've got the final edition of the power rankings for the regular season as well, and a look at how the Montreal Alliance have ingratiated themselves into the Montreal market and what it means to that city to have pro hoops going on there finally this season. Lots on tap today. We're going to get to it very shortly. But first, I want to take a second to congratulate A.J. Lawson, the former now Guelph Nighthawk, who this past week signed a two-way contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves on the heels of being an absolute stud for the Dallas Mavericks down in Vegas at Summer League. Lawson, had he stayed in the CEBL all season long, had a very real case to be the Canadian of the Year, and he was just awesome in the early going for the Nighthawks, one of the best transition players in the entirety of the CEBL, and some nice playmaking chops as well, despite not really having the ball in his hands much. Averaged 3 assists a game to go along with his 16-plus points a night. And it's just another awesome success story, proving that there is a pathway from the CEBL to the NBA. Now, 6 players in the last 8 months or so have made the journey from the CEBL to an NBA contract of some kind. Lawson will surely not be the last. Big congrats to him. It hurts the Nighthawks for sure in the closing moments of the season to not have Lawson coming back, but it's an incredible win for the CEBL and the whole premise of the league as a whole. This is the final episode of CEBL Weekly before the season rounds out, which means we need to run through my picks for the major hardware that we hand out to players at the end of each CEBL season. Going to run through the 5 major categories and give you my picks, except in one case I'm going to cop out. I'm going to tease that right now. Let's begin, however, with an award for which I don't think there's all that much of a debate. It's the Player of the Year, the award that to this point has only been won by one guy. That's, of course, Xavier Moon of the Edmonton Stingers the past 3 seasons. This year, for me, it is Tony Carr of the Saskatchewan Rattlers, and I don't know if it's especially close. Tony Carr has been everything for this Rattlers team this year. He's averaging nearly 20 points a game. He's at 6 rebounds and nearly 7 assists to lead the league. He has his fingers in the pie at all times when he's on the floor for this Rattlers team, and they would not run as smoothly, nearly as smoothly that is, without him. For me, when you factor in the efficiency, 45% from the field, 41% from downtown, Tony Carr has been the most impactful player in the CEBL this year. He is my pick to take home this award, with apologies to the likes of Khalil Ahmad, Caleb Agata, and Shane Gibson, who I all think made very strong cases, just not as strong as the former Penn State star, Tony Carr. For Canadian of the Year, this is another easy one for me, and it stands to reason that if Caleb Agata was on my short list of MVP candidates, he's very much in the driver's seat for Canadian of the Year as well. Simply put, he has been the best player on what has been the best team pretty much from start to finish in the CEBL this year with the Hamilton Honey Badgers. He's averaging 13 points a game, a team-leading 6 rebounds, and a team-best 5 assists to go along with better than 2 steals a night, featuring 2 different games of 6 steals over the course of this season on his resume. Agata has been simply fantastic and has made good on all the hype that started to build for him when he played for Team Nigeria in that massive upset over the United States a couple years back in an international game leading in to the Olympics. Caleb Agata is your Canadian of the Year. Without a doubt, he joins Lindell Wigginton, Jordan Baker, and Guillaume Boucard and becomes the 4th winner of that award in 4 years. Next up, we have Defensive Player of the Year. And for this one, I'm copping out just like I promised. I don't have a hard choice. I do, however, have 2 candidates, and I will let the weekend decide the winner. They are Caleb Agata of the Honey Badgers and EJ Onu of the Niagara River Lions. That Agata guy's pretty good, as it turns out. With these 2 guys, they have been the best defensive players on what have been the 2 best defensive teams in the CEBL all season long, and they do it differently. Agata, of course, leads the league in steals and has been the point of attack ace for Coach Ryan Schmidt, often guarding the best opposing player on the other team, whereas E.J. Onu has been the dazzling shot-blocking marvel in the middle of the floor for the River Lions, averaging 3.4 blocks a game and swallowing up everything that comes near him. And it's not just the blocks he gets, it's the shots at the rim that the other team is too afraid to take just because he's there that give him such a defensive reputation. I don't really know how to decide this one if I'm being totally honest, and so I will let the weekend games between the Honey Badgers and the River Lions decide. Whoever has the better defensive games, you'll win Defensive Player of the Year in my books, I guess. We move on to U Sports Player of the Year, and this one is another easy one. It's Thomas Kennedy of the Fraser Valley Bandits, who has been one of the league leaders in field goal percentage all season long, averaging north of 14 points a game, 8 rebounds, and nearly 2 assists for Mike Taylor's squad as an essential piece of a stacked Canadian cast out there in Langley. He also got the call to join the men's team at the Global Jam recently as well, speaking to the improvement he's made. He's very clearly the U Sports Player of the Year for me, and I would not want to be a team playing the Windsor Lancers in OUA hoops next season upon his return for his final year with Windsor. And lastly, we have the Coach of the Year award, and there are plenty of great candidates on tap this year. Dean Demopoulos has spearheaded a massive turnaround for the Rattlers. Mike Taylor's done an awesome job out in Fraser Valley for the Bandits. And of course, Jermaine Small is always doing a good job with the Edmonton Stingers. Throw in Vic Razzo and the job he's done with the help of Danielle Boyego subbing in as a head coach a few times this season, and the River Lions contingent is strong too. But for me, it's Ryan Schmidt of the Hamilton Honey Badgers who takes the award this year. This Honey Badgers team has been consistent from start to finish, and that is with a very inconsistent set of players available to Schmidt and his staff. The start of the year was plagued by some guys finishing up seasons overseas and arriving late, including Martin Krumpholz, one of the best import players from the international side in the entire league. And beyond that, Christian Vital and Jeremiah Tillman Jr., the 2 star imports for this team, were missing for most of July as they went down to Summer League as the Honey Badgers kept on rolling. Ryan Schmidt's built a system and he's built a culture in Hamilton where these guys love one another. They are playing as a group and for each other, and for that, Ryan Schmidt deserves Coach of the Year. It's not easy to get a team together in the short form season that is the CEBL, but Schmidt's done that wonderfully, and he is my Coach of the Year for 2022. The Montreal Alliance won't be getting a taste of the playoffs in their inaugural season of action, but that doesn't mean everything's bad out in Montreal. Quite the opposite, actually. The Alliance are a team that means something to the city they play in. If you've tuned into any game this season featuring the Alliance, you've seen raucous crowds at the Verdun Auditorium, you've seen dazzling halftime shows, and of course, NBA players sitting courtside pretty much every night. This is a basketball hotbed, and the Alliance only helped to affirm that this season. In this week's CEBL Playbook, we take a look at the impact the Alliance are having on a basketball-crazed town out in Montreal.
Basketball in Montreal, it's all about competing and playing hard. We play with pride, and you can see it. They just love to see the fight. Oh, on his head. Oh, my God. I could see that coming. You heard it, I said on his head. I'm Alain Louis. I'm from Montreal. I'm a point guard, and I now play in the CEBL for the Montreal Alliance. The basketball in Montreal is different, man. The basketball in Montreal, it's all about competing and playing hard. Literally all about just those two. We play with pride, and you can see it. The guys that are in the league, the NBA, the guys that play U Sports, NCAA, everybody has that one thing. They play with pride and they play harder than everybody else. Hey, That's Montreal for you. That's Montreal for you right there. They compete so hard, it's... Nah, I like that, I like that. People that play basketball in Montreal are dogs. They compete, they play with pride. That's how we're brought up, and that's how we know how to do it. Montreal basketball is growing. Montreal basketball is growing, and with the amount of guys that we have in the NBA now, you understand kids are starting to think like, we can do something with this. It's huge because kids have to see it firsthand. And when they see it, they go back home and they're like, Dad, we have this right here. I could do this thing. It's just nice to see and nice to be a part of that wave that's pushing it.
Basically, when we were considering our different options, this one was, top one from the scratch. What we wanted is to have a venue where you're close to the action. Wherever you're sitting, there's no bad seat in the house. You feel like you're part of the action. And this is what we feel here. Everyone falls in love when they come in. They're like, it's beautiful and you can feel it. Like there's an atmosphere to it. And maybe this is why we're the loudest crowd. Fans' opinion is very important to me. So we did a survey right from the start and asking them what should the name be and why. What was coming back all the time was inclusion, diversity, multicultural, sense of belonging. That's what would come back all the time. And this is what represents Montreal. And it's actually, my hairdresser who suggested the word alliance, and she was explaining to me how basketball was important when she was younger. And she said we would, meet at the park, and whether you were a girl, a boy, doesn't matter if you spoke, English, French, what color you were, everybody, what age you were, everybody would come together and play. She goes, you should be called the Montreal Alliance. And that's what we did.
I think it's important to show them our path, just for them to not give up or not fold and just work hard. I don't just want to be good just for me. I want to show them that a smaller guy, a young guy from here can actually do something great with basketball.
What we want to do is improve every single day. I really pay attention to what the fans are saying, what the fans are asking. I want to make sure that they have a great experience, and I want to know how we can make a difference in the community. How can we inspire? How can we help? And this is very important to us. So we're watching, we're listening, and we're working with, different entities and, try to make a difference and inspire.
Time now for the final edition of my favorite segment every week. It's the Power Rankings one last time. And look, I'm going to miss this very powerful position I occupy, where I get to dictate which teams are good and which ones are not so good for all of you to disagree with. But all good things must come to an end. Let's get to it. The final edition of the power rankings on CEBL Weekly. At number 10, we have the Montreal Alliance. They had a chance to pull off something spectacular with an end-of-season heater, but dropping the first 2 of 3 games with the Growlers has officially eliminated them and relegated them to the bottom spot in the power rankings throughout the rest of the offseason. Tough stuff for Montreal, but they'll be back again next year. At number 9, it's the Guelph Nighthawks, and they're not the second worst team in the CEBL. But the power rankings are very much a what have you done for me lately kind of segment. And the Nighthawks have dropped 2 straight games and lost AJ Lawson to a much-deserved NBA contract with the Timberwolves, leaving them on wobbly footing going into the final weekend and at risk of some supreme weirdness that could see them miss the playoffs if things break a certain way, which leads me to team number 8. It is, of course, the Newfoundland Growlers, everyone's favorite underdog who, after 3 straight wins, are still alive, baby! We buried them too early last week. So, how can they make the play-in while spoiling Guelph's season? Well, if Guelph loses to Saskatchewan on Wednesday, and Newfoundland can beat Montreal for a 3rd straight game that same night, it'll set up a Friday contest between 8-11 Guelph and 6-12 Newfoundland. If Newfoundland then wins that game by 8 or more points, they'll take the tiebreaker from the Nighthawks, who will finish the season at 8-12. All Newfoundland would then have to do is beat Scarborough at home on Sunday to move to 8-12, pass the Nighthawks, and earn a stunning play-in berth. This whole week is one spicy meatball for both Guelph and Newfoundland. At number 7, we have the Ottawa Blackjacks, and they get themselves a bump this week based on the strength of their win over the league-leading Honey Badgers over the weekend, which, if nothing else, set up a banger of a weekend home-and-home between Hamilton and Niagara with the top seed on the line. So thank you very much, Ottawa. Honey Badgers head coach Ryan Schmidt called the Blackjacks one of the 2 or 3 most talented teams in the league after that game, which is hard to argue and is the reason why their 6-12 record feels a little disappointing, but they can certainly make it up once we get to the playoffs. At number 6, we have the Scarborough Shooting Stars, who have dropped 2 straight games and, due to losing the tiebreaker to Guelph this year, can finish anywhere from 3rd to the bottom play-in spot. They close against a Fraser Valley team first up, also hunting for a home quarterfinal date, and then finish off the season with what will either be an eliminated Growlers squad or a very hungry Newfoundland team 1 win away from pulling off a miracle. You have to imagine they're hoping for the latter. And 4 and 5, we have the Edmonton Stingers and the Fraser Valley Bandits, and I am not choosing between these teams for the 2nd straight week. You can't make me do it. These are probably the most similarly constructed teams in all of the CEBL, featuring both stacked Canadian casts and star imports that tie the whole operation together. Shane Gibson's that dude for Fraser Valley, while Trishan Burrell dropped 37 points in his Stingers debut over the weekend. These teams square off on Saturday night with a home quarterfinal date very likely on the line. Fraser Valley holds the tiebreaker as it stands right now, but an Edmonton win by just 4 or more points will swing it back in the favor of the defending champs. At number 3, it's the Saskatchewan Rattlers, and the Rattlers picked up a big-time win over Scarborough on Sunday on the back of a triple-double by my MVP pick, Tony Carr. They've now won 3 straight after a bit of a dry spell, and in spite of losing import Scotty Lindsay a few games back, they haven't skipped a beat in the top-end talent department as Bruce Massey has replaced Scotty Lindsay on the roster. And boy, as a guy who watched a lot of CEBL ball back in the first season, I'm very happy to see it. Massey might have been the favorite to win Most Outstanding Player back in the first year of the league before he left the team for personal reasons. Tango with the Rattlers in a single elimination game at your own peril. And here's the deal with spots number 1 and 2. Once again, I'm a coward. I don't know how to, nor do I want to figure out a way to separate Hamilton and Niagara right now. And frankly, I don't think it's fair that you're asking me to do that when they haven't even played one another yet this season. So I will be doing here what I did in the Agata versus Onu Defensive Player of the Year debate, and I will let the events of this coming weekend decide who claims the top spot in the filed power rankings of the season. It's my show, there's nothing you can do about it, but on that note, let's take a look at Hamilton and Niagara and what they have on tap for us this weekend. It all comes down to this. On Friday in Niagara and Sunday in Hamilton on CBC, the Honey Badgers and River Lions will square off in a home-and-home with the top seed in the CEBL very much on the line. The winner of that top seed will get free passage all the way to semifinal weekend, the loser having to play a single quarterfinal knockout game to make it to championship weekend. It's going to be a blast. They might be the two biggest regular season games we've ever seen in the CEBL. And to tee them up this week, I'm joined by league color analyst and the host of the Honey Drop podcast, Andrew Damlin, to talk about the key matchups and how these two teams became the class of the CEBL in 2022. All right, joining me now on CEBL Weekly to preview a titanic home-and-home that will determine who gets free passage to semifinal weekend in Ottawa between Niagara and Hamilton. It is color analyst extraordinaire Andrew Damlin, who has called games for these teams all season long. Andrew, how are you doing, man?
I'm excited for this showdown at the end of the season.
The schedule makers could not have got this more perfect, right? Like just setting up the first meeting between the two best teams in the league. It makes you wonder if maybe this is all wrestling and it's just made up and predetermined. It's that perfect of a finish to the season. Friday night in Niagara, Sunday in Hamilton, and we'll know who gets the top spot and that free passage all the way through the semis, avoids the need to play a single knockout quarterfinal game. And buddy, avoiding as many single knockout games as you possibly can is the way to go. Andrew, what has you excited about this matchup between Hamilton and Niagara based on the way they play, the guys they have available? What are you keying in on from a sort of analyst perspective coming into this matchup?
It's very simple. It's Caleb Agata defending the league's leading scorer, Khalil Ahmad. Agata has these quick hands and the frame to handle the physicality of Ahmad. Lots of teams' guards can stay in front of Ahmad, but Ahmad is so strong and he gets to the foul line so often that teams just wear down over the course of a game. But Caleb Agata, I think he's got what it takes to sort of keep him in front of him, keep him frustrated, and that's going to lead to every other piece. Who's going to come through? A lot of new pieces coming into Niagara. How are they going to fit in? And Hamilton coming off a demoralizing loss against Ottawa last night, I should say on Sunday. Which team's going to come out strong on Friday? It's going to be really interesting, that first quarter especially.
And I guess the big picture question here, Andrew, is it's Hamilton and Niagara. These two teams have been the class of the league all season long. And again, it's fitting that they're playing each other on the final weekend. What do you think has allowed these teams to achieve the heights that they've achieved so far this year? Yeah, there have been ups and downs. There have been some, tricky losses for both sides in certain spots, but for the most part, they've been consistently awesome all the way through. How have they done that?
On Hamilton's side, I've been fortunate enough to cover them pretty closely. I go to a lot of their practices, and to a man, they love each other. Like they use the word love. And I talked to Isaiah Reese, who's not even in the league anymore, but he played under Coach Schmidt for 5 games while their two best players, Christian Vital and Jeremiah Tillman, were out. And he was almost emotional talking about the relationship he had with Coach Schmidt and how he'd do anything for him. So the togetherness, united aspect that Hamilton has, they don't have a top 10 scorer in the league, and they've just played this wonderful, suffocating defense and free-flowing offense, conceptual, as he calls it, not many sets. So that sort of togetherness, and obviously the talent that they have as a unit, has been led to their success. And on the Niagara side, they've got a flat-out scorer in Khalil Ahmad. They got AJ Davis, Antonio Davis's son, who can score in any way. He's got the silky left hand that we're all attracted to. And when they get the ball moving, their three-point shooting, even if they're not shooting the ball that well, the volume is so high that it leads them to success throughout the year. And whenever they're sort of playing cohesively and you got Khalil Ahmad as your closer, that's going to lead to a successful season.
The home-and-home between Hamilton and Niagara is not the only thing to keep your eye on this week as the CEBL's regular season comes to a close. There are plenty of games with massive implications for the postseason. Let's dig into them now in our weekly calendar check. Things get rolling with a massive triple header of games on Wednesday night, beginning as the Newfoundland Growlers take on the Montreal Alliance at the Memorial University Fieldhouse, 7:30 Newfoundland time for that one. It'll be the third straight game between these teams. The Growlers looking for their third straight win over Montreal, their fourth straight overall, with that outside shot at the postseason still on the table. Then on Wednesday, the Guelph Nighthawks have a chance to punch their ticket to the playoffs with a victory as they host the Saskatchewan Rattlers, lose, and they'll be in some trouble going into that Friday contest against Newfoundland. The Rattlers, of course, still very much looking for a home date in the quarterfinals. Lastly, the Edmonton Stingers host the Ottawa Blackjacks. We know the Blackjacks are at championship weekend, no problem. The Stingers are trying to punch their ticket to get a home court date as well and give themselves a little bit of an advantage going in to the final game of the season against Fraser Valley. Then up on Thursday, the Scarborough Shooting Stars host the Fraser Valley Bandits. These two teams razor close in the standings. Obviously, huge implications there. Then on Friday, we've got ourselves a triple header and a potentially very juicy one. Of course, the Newfoundland Growlers host the Guelph Nighthawks to start the night. That one at 7:30 p.m. Newfoundland time, 6 Eastern, as the Growlers potentially have a chance to take the tiebreaker away from Guelph and give themselves a winner-go-home situation in their game Sunday. Guelph's schedule will end that night. If they win on Wednesday, there's no problems. If they don't, watch out. Following that is the first of the two dates between the River Lions and the Honey Badgers, that one at 7 p.m. Eastern at Meridian Center, followed up at 7:30 as the Alliance host the Saskatchewan Rattlers. Montreal's season is pretty much cooked, though they still have games to play, which are important. The Rattlers, however, will be looking to secure one of those home playoff dates in the quarterfinals. Then on Saturday, it's not quite the main event of the weekend with the home-and-home between Hamilton and Niagara getting that distinction, but the Fraser Valley Bandits hosting the Edmonton Stingers at 7 p.m. Pacific could very much be for a home playoff spot. That should be a great one. Followed up on Sunday as the Growlers host the Shooting Stars at the Memorial Fieldhouse, potentially with a chance to pull off a miracle and make the postseason, followed up as the Hamilton Honey Badgers take on the Niagara River Lions in the game that will decide the top spot in the league. Follow that up on Monday with the season finale as the Ottawa Blackjacks take on the Montreal Alliance at home. Not a ton of playoff implications there, but the Blackjacks can certainly get themselves on the right foot going in to the playoffs. And that will do it for the final regular season edition of CEBL Weekly. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again after championship weekend to recap all that went down in Ottawa. In case you missed it, CEBL Mobile, the official app of the CEBL, is now available for all iOS and Android devices. Download now and follow your favorite teams and players. Also, don't forget to follow us at CEB League on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for all the latest news, updates, and honestly, some pretty fire content. CEBL Championship Weekend is upon us, and it's going to be in Ottawa, August 10th to 14th. Tournament packs are available now. Go get them at cebl.ca, which is the place you can get all of your CEBL-related information. For Director Jamie Tan and Editor Shariar Shockett, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Sean Woodley, and Hamilton is going to beat Saskatchewan in the final to win their first CEBL championship. You heard it here.